In this series, we travel through history step by step, one year at a time. Each episode is a window into a single moment. The events, the discoveries, the culture, and the everyday lives that shaped our world. Join me as we move year by year through the past, uncovering the quiet details and grand stories that made history what it is today. The world in 1920. Hello, dear listener. It's Toro, welcoming you back to another quiet journey through time. Tonight, we will gently drift into the year 1920, a year resting on the delicate edge between the old world and the new. The Great War had ended only 2 short years before, and many hearts were still tender with memory, yet hopeful for gentler days ahead. As you settle in and close your eyes, imagine the slow turning of the calendar's page, the dawn of a decade that would later be remembered as the Roaring Twenties. But here, at the very beginning, life was still hushed, adjusting, unfolding. Nations were healing, inventions were humming, and ordinary people were finding small joys in their daily lives. So make yourself comfortable, breathe deeply, and let us wander softly together into the world of 1920, a world both familiar and far away, filled with quiet stories waiting to be told. World events. The year 1920 unfolded like a hesitant sunrise, bringing both new beginnings and lingering shadows. Around the globe, the aftermath of the Great War continued to shape borders, governments, and the daily rhythm of life. In January, a new institution quietly began its work, the League of Nations. It was born of hope, a dream to prevent future wars through conversation and cooperation. Though its power was limited, the very idea of nations gathering to talk rather than fight felt like a gentle exhale after years of conflict. Delegates met in Geneva, speaking softly across long tables, sketching out the fragile outlines of peace. Meanwhile, the map of Europe shifted like a slowly moving puzzle. In August, the Treaty of Sèvres was signed, dissolving the Ottoman Empire and redrawing the boundaries of the Middle East. Old empires had crumbled, and new nations were emerging, still uncertain of their footing. In Poland, independence was fresh, and the young republic faced both pride and peril as it defended its borders in the Polish-Soviet War. A reminder that even in peace, tensions lingered. Across the Atlantic, in the United States, a new amendment quietly reshaped everyday life. On January 17th, Prohibition officially began. The sale of alcohol was now banned, and taverns closed their doors. In their place, secret establishments known as speakeasies began to bloom, tucked away behind unmarked doors, filled with whispered laughter and jazz. For many, the ban brought frustration. For others, it stirred creativity in finding hidden ways to share a drink with friends. Later in the year, America prepared for an election. In November, Warren G. Harding won the presidency, promising a return to normalcy. His words, simple and steady, echoed the yearning of many people who wanted life to feel ordinary again. Elsewhere, voices for independence grew stronger. In India, the gentle leadership of Mahatma Gandhi inspired thousands to join the non-cooperation movement, seeking freedom from British rule through peaceful protest. In Ireland, tensions deepened, and 1920 marked a fierce chapter in the Irish War of Independence, though ordinary families still tended their gardens, sang their songs, and carried on with quiet determination. It was also the year of the Summer Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium. For the first time since the war, athletes gathered from many nations, their footsteps echoing on tracks and fields, their cheers lifting hearts weary of conflict. The Olympic flag with its 5 interlocking rings was flown for the first time, a symbol of unity across continents. And as if to remind people that nature carried on regardless of politics, a solar eclipse swept across parts of the globe in April, dimming the daylight into a dreamy twilight. People stood in fields and city streets watching the suns slip behind the moon, awed by the quiet beauty of the universe. The world of 1920 was not yet roaring, not yet golden, but it was breathing again. Slowly, steadily, gently. Daily life. Around the world. Beyond the headlines, daily life in 1920 unfolded in a rhythm both simple and tender. Imagine walking down a bustling city street. Horses still clattered on cobblestones in many places, but automobiles were becoming more common, their engines buzzing like mechanical bees. In New York, a ride on the subway cost just a nickel. In London, double-decker buses wound their way through narrow streets, painted bright red even then. Homes were modest, often lit by soft yellow lamps, or, for the fortunate, the new glow of electric bulbs. Many kitchens still relied on coal or wood stoves, filling rooms with warmth and the scent of simmering stews. A loaf of bread in America cost around 12 cents, while a quart of milk was about 9 cents. Postage stamps carried letters for just 2 cents, connecting families across oceans with the delicate scratch of fountain pens. In shops, the windows displayed the latest fashions. Women's dresses were beginning to shorten ever so slightly, rising above the ankle for ease of walking. Cloche hats and soft cardigans were stylish, and silk stockings were considered a luxury. Men wore flat caps or fedoras, sturdy wool suits, and polished shoes. Wristwatches, once seen as impractical, were quickly becoming the modern gentleman's accessory, a small marvel ticking on the wrist. Children. In 1920 filled their days with simple joys. In Europe and America, marbles, jacks, and spinning tops were common games. Rag dolls were cherished companions, and toy trains delighted young imaginations. Many children carried hoops to roll along sidewalks or kites to fly in breezy fields. The new craze of erector sets allowed young builders to imagine bridges and towers of their own. In the evenings, families gathered around pianos to sing together, or they sat by the hearth reading aloud from well-worn books. Gramophones spun records, sending out tinny but magical melodies of jazz or opera. Radios were rare, still experimental, but whispers of their future promise were beginning to spread. Food was hearty and seasonal. Sunday roasts, stews, and fresh bread were staples in Europe. In Japan, rice bowls, fish, and seasonal vegetables anchored daily meals, while in Mexico, tamales and tortillas carried flavors of tradition. In the United States, the ice cream cone was still a delightful novelty, enjoyed at soda fountains with tall glasses of fizzy drinks. New gadgets caught people's imaginations. The vacuum cleaner, though heavy and noisy, began appearing in middle-class homes. Typewriters clacked away in offices, empowering both business and literature. Telephones, with their curved receivers, were still rare in many households, but city directories grew thicker with each passing year. And just as in every age, people had their little fads. Crossword puzzles were becoming a quiet obsession spreading across newspapers. Dance lessons in the foxtrot and the waltz filled local halls. Photography was a growing hobby, with families saving for a Kodak camera to capture their own memories on small squares of film. The world of 1920 was stitched together from these small daily threads. The warmth of bread in an oven, the clink of coins on a shop counter, the sound of children's laughter echoing in narrow streets. Science, inventions, and technology. The air of 1920 was alive with invention. Science and technology moved forward with steady wonder, reshaping how people lived and dreamed. One of the quiet marvels was the growth of aviation. Just a decade after the Wright brothers' first flight, airplanes were now carrying mail across countries, saving days of travel time. In May, the first regular airmail service began between London and Paris, and passengers slowly followed, peering nervously yet excitedly out of small windows as they crossed the channel. In medicine, 1920 brought breakthroughs that changed lives. Insulin was on the horizon. Discovered that very year, by Frederick Banting and Charles Best, though it would not be used in patients until the early 1920s. Their work promised hope for those with diabetes, turning a fatal condition into a manageable one. Electricity spread further into homes and cities, powering street lamps that glowed gently at night, replacing the flicker of gaslight. Factories hummed with new machines, churning out goods faster than ever before. Automobiles, especially the Ford Model T, rolled off assembly lines in great numbers, making travel easier for ordinary families. In entertainment, the silent film industry was booming, thanks in part to advancements in cameras and projectors. More theaters were electrified, allowing larger crowds to gather in comfort and watch the flickering magic on screen. And in the background, unseen yet profound, scientists studied atoms, radio waves, and the deep mysteries of the universe. The groundwork of modern physics and chemistry was being laid, even if few outside the laboratories knew it yet. Technology. In 1920 was not loud or overwhelming. It was like a gentle hum in the background, promising possibilities and carrying humanity quietly into a modern age. Culture and the arts. Culture. In 1920 was like a canvas freshly stretched, ready to be painted with bold colors. Across the world, art, music, and literature flowed with new energy. In Paris, the art world buzzed with modernism and Dadaism, movements that questioned old traditions and played with abstraction. Painters like Pablo Picasso and Joan Miro explored shapes and emotions beyond realism, leaving viewers both puzzled and intrigued. On bookshelves, readers found comfort and adventure. In America, F. Scott Fitzgerald published his first novel, This Side of Paradise, capturing the restless spirit of youth. Poetry, too, found new voices, with writers like T.S. Eliot shaping words into modern rhythms. Music drifted through streets and dance halls. Jazz, born in New Orleans, was spreading rapidly, filling rooms with syncopated beats and lively improvisation. Louis Armstrong was beginning to rise, and Duke Ellington was composing melodies that would soon echo around the world. Meanwhile, in Europe, classical traditions held strong, with symphony halls still filled with the works of Brahms, Wagner, and Debussy. The stage carried its own magic. Broadway in New York was lively, with musicals and plays bringing stories to life under glowing lights. In London's West End, theatres buzzed with performances that drew both laughter and tears. Opera houses, too, continued their grand traditions, with singers lifting voices that carried to the rafters. Cinema, though silent, captured imaginations everywhere. Charlie Chaplin remained a beloved figure, his little tramp character bringing both humor and tenderness. Audiences gathered in darkened rooms, the flicker of light turning walls into worlds of fantasy. Sports united communities with energy and cheer. Baseball was beloved in the United States, with Babe Ruth hitting towering home runs. In Europe and South America, soccer thrilled fans with fast kicks and roaring crowds. Boxing and cycling, too, drew loyal followers. For many, these games were not just pastimes, but bright threads of excitement in daily life. Culture. In 1920 was both rooted and experimental, a world still honoring the old, yet eagerly testing the new. Media and headlines. News in 1920 traveled on paper, ink, and wire. Newspapers arrived each morning, their bold headlines smudging fingertips with black ink. Telegrams clicked through wires, carrying urgent messages across distances. Posters decorated city walls, announcing events, dances, and political meetings. For a penny or two, people could catch up on world affairs. A New York Times headline might read, "League of Nations holds first session in Geneva." In London, papers reported, "Votes for women achieved, suffrage extended in the United States." Indeed, that year, the 19th Amendment granted American women the right to vote, a quiet revolution in democracy. Other headlines were lighter. new dance crazes sweep the ballrooms, or record-breaking tomatoes grown in the countryside. Sports pages celebrated Babe Ruth's powerful swings, while society columns described glittering evenings in Paris or London. The prices of goods whispered of simpler times. A men's wool suit might cost $30, a pair of women's shoes around $10, a movie ticket just 15 cents. For families, these small sums shaped the rhythm of living, written into budgets and dreams alike. News. In 1920 was both serious and charming, a blend of international treaties and local curiosities, all read quietly over cups of tea or coffee at the kitchen table. People born and people who died. This year. Every year welcomes new lives and bids farewell to others, and 1920 was no different. Among those born was Isaac Asimov, who would one day spin entire universes through his science fiction tales. Ray Bradbury, too, entered the world that year, destined to enchant readers with visions of Mars and midnight carnival tents. In music, Charlie Parker was born, a saxophonist who would later reshape jazz with his brilliant improvisations. Also arriving in 1920 was Yul Brynner, the actor whose deep voice and commanding presence would grace stages and films alike. And in politics, Javier Pérez de Cuellar was born in Peru, destined to become a future Secretary General of the United Nations. At the same time, the world said farewell to figures of the past. The great Impressionist painter Amedeo Modigliani passed away in Paris, leaving behind graceful portraits and haunting eyes on canvas. In the United States, businessman John Wanamaker, a pioneer of the department store, also departed. Their contributions lingered quietly, woven into the fabric of daily life and culture. As 1920 drew to a close, the world exhaled gently. The first year of a new decade had carried with it both uncertainty and hope. People everywhere felt the pull of change, though they could not yet see how swiftly the decade would dance forward into jazz and flapper dresses, radios and airplanes, bright lights and bold ideas. For now, the feeling was quieter. Families welcomed the winter holidays with candlelight, song, and gatherings around tables heavy with food. Snow fell softly in northern towns, while elsewhere, breezes rustled through palms or deserts, carrying their own sense of season. The year's end was filled with quiet reflection. People hoped for stability, for jobs, for peace. They wished for simple joys, children's laughter, warm hearths, a letter from a distant friend. And beneath it all, a gentle hum of anticipation stirred, as if the world itself was pausing on the threshold of something new. Looking back, 1920 feels like the soft overture to the symphony of the 20th century, not yet loud, but already filled with notes of wonder, courage, and imagination. And so, dear listener, our journey through the world of 1920 comes to a close. Thank you for wandering softly with me through its streets, its music, its inventions, and its quiet hopes. If you enjoyed this gentle passage through time, I invite you to like and subscribe so we may continue our travels together, year by year, night by night. For now, let the echoes of 1920 drift like a lullaby in your dreams. Rest well, sleep deeply, and know that tomorrow will bring another journey, another story. Good night,